Our agenda for today will be tomorrow. I just wanted to show you some random things. So we have gone through. Agenda for our today's session will be to check some advantages that we have for um, for Playwright, and then we'll also see like what used to be the difference between Playwright and Cypress and Playwright and Selenium. So why like mostly the organizations are nowadays moving towards Playwright. So those differences we'll see, and we'll see like why like Playwright comes into picture, which is very famous in the market, though it have been though it is basically been in the market from the last 4 years. Okay, so that kind of things we'll see in our session today, and later again we'll go to the Q&A. If you will be having any kind of questions, I'll be happy to answer over there as well. But in between as well, if any one of you think that if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask your question over there as well. Okay, so let's go through and see the advantages that we have for a Playwright. So few of the advantages that we have mentioned over here inside the document, which we have prepared for our demo session itself, and for later when we'll be starting with our new real sessions, you'll also be getting the access to all these documents inside here, and like access to all the documents that we have gone through and that we'll be going through for um, Playwright, TypeScript, JavaScript, other things as well. We'll be getting over there. Now, this document that you see, we have prepared for this document is basically for complete Playwright automation. So every method, everything that we generally use in terms of a Playwright have been mentioned inside this document. Okay, one of the things that I have also mentioned over here is to um, advantages that we have in terms of Playwright. So yesterday, if any one of you were available in the session, you might have observed or might have not gone through in detail, but might have observed that we generally do not write any code to wait for an element on the web page, right? So let's say example, we have certain element. So let's say this is the application that we have. And if we have to perform certain action on this click button, right? So what generally we check in terms of a manual testing is we launch the URL and then we'll be waiting for this particular element to be available on the page, right? So even in terms of manual testing, you will be waiting for this element to be available on the page. And then you can perform certain other actions like click on, then open some kind of things and then perform certain scenarios, right? Even when you go for other tools and technology like Selenium, Cypress, and other things, you will have to provide the waiting time over there. That means you have to say that launch the URL and then wait for this element to be displayed on the page. Okay, so for that again, we in terms of a Selenium, we have to go for some waiting concept, which is implicit wait and explicit wait. By writing implicit or explicit wait, we have to say that check for the element if it is displayed. If it is displayed, then go and write the method for the clicking. That means write the action that you are trying to perform on the certain element, right? But what Playwright says that Playwright is having one advantage, one benefit why the organization are moving towards is one of them is Playwright says enables the end-to-end testing for the modern web application with auto waiting capability. It has a automatically waiting for an element capability. That means we do not have to wait for an element to be displayed on the page, or we do not have to wait for an element to be enabled on the page, and then you can perform certain actions. So it says that I will, whenever you try to interact with any element on the page, I will first check whether the element is displayed, whether the element is enabled on the page or not, and then you can go and perform whatever the operations that you have to do. Example, do not worry like what we have written over here. But in this case, if you see over here, let's say example, let me show you the very simple example over here in terms of the scenario. So here, if you try to see, what we have done is we are just trying to log in into the application. We are just trying to log in into the application. And for that, we have written some methods, some lines of code inside this one, with which we are saying that fill the username, fill the password, and click on login button. But if you see in this case, we have never said that we are waiting for an element. That means we have never written any lines of code saying wait for a username field to be displayed on the page and then fill the username. Right? This is what happened in terms of when we use Playwright. Playwright says that I'll automatically wait for an element to be displayed on the page and clickable on the page. And how does it claim is, if you go on any of the browser, let me just take it out. So if you go to the browser and search for auto wait inside the Playwright. So Playwright says that, let's say if you are trying to click on an element, let's say, for example, if you are trying to make certain actions, which is clicking on an element, before clicking on an element, Playwright will ensure that locators that you have written, what is locator? Locator is something that you are trying to identify the element on the web page. Example, you are trying to identify this. In terms of a manual testing, we visually see, right? We see by our eyes saying that clicks are a click button is available. But how does our code know that which element we have to click on? How does our element or code test automation knows that which element we have to click on, right? So we have to give them the visibility of certain element that you are trying to click on, and that is what known as a locator. Locator help us in identifying the element on the web page, and that will, whatever the action that we are trying that we have to perform, it will perform. So it says that I'll first check the locator that you have written is correct or not. Element is visible on the page. Element is also stable, and it is also enabled before we go and perform the clicking operation. So all these steps is being validated by the Playwright automatically. That means whenever you work with other tools and technology in terms of Playwright, in terms of Selenium, right? So we generally get, like, let's say if the element is not available, we'll get the stale element exception, right? Stale element exception have been by default have been taken care by the Playwright over here. So we'll never get stale element exception in terms of Playwright, because Playwright will by default check for the element have appeared on the page or not. This is one advantage. And for that, it will wait for 30 seconds maximum. That means by default, it will wait for 30 seconds if the element have not appeared on the page. Even after 30 seconds, if it is not available, then still it has given a flexibility that you can override the default time as well. But by default, Playwright will wait for 30 seconds to see if an element is appearing on the page or not. This is one advantage where we do not have to wait for any elements to be displayed on the page or to check if the element have appeared on the page or not. Playwright will by default handle it. Now, second is if we compare with the Cypress, Cypress supports only JavaScript and TypeScript, whereas Playwright support most of the language that have been that are like most popular in terms of technology, using JavaScript, TypeScript, Java, Python, C Sharp, and other languages have been supported by Playwright, which is similar to the Selenium. Selenium also supports most of the other languages. But in case of Cypress, it only supports JavaScript and TypeScript. Other couple of benefits are that Playwright also works on most of the browser that are available, most of the popular browser that are available, which is Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, and other browser as well. Now, when we talk about it works on different browsers, right? Playwright has a capability that it Playwright has basically a capability that it will, even if you have even let's say if you're working inside a Windows operating system or Mac operating system, And if you do not have any browser available inside your system, then also your Playwright code will work on that particular browser. Currently, if you see inside this, what I mean to say is I'll show you a demo. Currently, if you see, I am trying to display everything on the Windows operating system. And in this case, I do not have Safari browser available. So if you just search for Safari, I do not have Safari browser available in my system. Okay, I do not have Safari browser available in my system. But let's go over here to the code. Do not worry what we are trying to run. Uh, let's go over here inside this and try to run a test case. I am enabling the browser, which is Safari in this case. I'm trying to enable the browser, which is Safari in this case over here. So I'll just say it as, let's say, I'll just copy paste the Safari browser, complete things over here, and go to this to enable the Safari browser in this case. This is for a Safari browser. This was for the Chrome, so I've just commented it out. And let's go and try to execute certain scenarios in this case, certain test case in this case. Do not worry what kind of test case that we are trying to write. We'll go all the things that you see over here in our session as well. I'm just trying to run one simple example is for UI basics. You'll see that, this is the browser that is a Safari browser. You see WebKit over here. WebKit is a Safari browser. Though Safari browser is not available in my system, but it is trying to work on. It has also launched the Safari browser over here. And whatever the steps that we have given, it will like keep on performing the actions in few seconds. That means it says that even if you do not have any browser available inside your system, Playwright by default will work on those browser as well. Even if you do not have any browser available inside your system, Playwright will launch the test case on that particular browser as well. That means it does not require any browser to be available inside your system, and it will work on different types of browser that you provide in for the for your test automation.
So, Praveen, sorry to interrupt. Does it mean that it is using some kind of emulators for
Right,
the
Playwright at the time of installation, it will like install internally for the Playwright all the browsers that it has to work with,
Thank you.
all the browsers that it supports. But
Meanwhile,
physically, it will not impact any browser inside your system if it is available, and it will not take the help of the browser that you are available inside your system.
okay. I wrote one more question in the chat. This is you mentioned that they are working on providing support for mobile apps, which is currently not there. So
Right.
when say any company which is using Playwright, and most of them they are supporting applications on mobile platforms. So what is the other tool that you would recommend using along with this, which has minimum kind of impact and learning curve?
For mobile application,
Yeah,
mobile
assuming we are using
application,
Playwright for API and web applications.
right. For mobile application, you have one option which you can check it for the APM.
Means
APM is
uh,
one of a tool which supports the mobile automation.
and because it supports APIs, so through APIs we can test mobile applications. Are you trying to say that?
For API, you can support any other, like for API, you can check any other API, whether that is for mobile API or web application API, you can check using the Playwright. But if you are going to check for a UI automation in terms of mobile app, then currently you have to depend on like third-party tool, which is either APM or there are some it plans are available and some other are available in terms of mobile
Okay,
app.
the APM and all that, right?
APM, yes. Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you.
So
Right.
Playwright doesn't work it works only for web applications on desktop, right?
Web application on different versions. It also works on mobile as well.
Okay, so we can use on mobile web browsing, right?
That is what the next one is.
Okay, okay.
So works on any operating system, which is Windows, MacBook, Linux, and support native mobile emulation of Google Chrome, Google Chrome for Android browser, and for iOS, it works on Safari browser. Whatever the code that you'll be writing for web automation, the same code will work on, if you're using Android, then on Google Chrome. If you're using iOS, then on Safari browser as well. You do not have to change any configuration at all. It will automatically take whichever browser that you are trying to work on, either Android or mobile.
So we provide that in the config files, like it has to work on
Exactly.
desktop or.
Exactly. Right. So if you see inside the configuration file over here, you will see this is saying mobile Chrome, which is for Android, and
Okay.
mobile Safari, it is for iOS.
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Right. Okay. So that is one another benefit that we have. You do not have to do any other configuration. Just mention inside your configuration file, and it will work on that particular browser. However, it works on the web application. Now, apart from this, there are a lot many advantages, which few of them I have mentioned over here. One is Playwright by default handle pop-ups or alerts, which we say it as alerts or pop-up. Playwright by default handle that. When we have to scroll down on the page or scroll up on the page, Playwright by default handle those scenarios as well, which will automatically scroll down depending on wherever your elements are available. And when we talk about different features that it has given, so Playwright have given some excellent feature called traces. There is a feature known as trace. Trace is a feature which is similar to the log file that we generate in other tools and technology. So let's say if you have worked with Selenium, then you might be knowing that you might have generated like log file using log4j, right? So traces is the similar things that it generates automatically for us in terms of Playwright. So Playwright generates the log file as well automatically, which can take automatic screenshot. Yes, you have heard it correctly. Playwright will automatically take the screenshot. We do not have to write even a single line of code, and we do not have to depend on any third-party tool over here. As we, in terms of Selenium, we depend on commons.io library, which is again a third-party tool. Playwright also do a video recording of your test automation automatically as well. I'll show you in like after going through with um, all the basic advantage that we have listed out over here. After that, we'll show you how does it take the screenshot, how does it also generate the video recording automatically in terms of the test automation. And Playwright also do a test retry for flaky test case. What is meant by test retry over here is sometimes test case get failed inside the test automation. And that might be due to the slowness of the application, slowness of the CI/CD pipeline, or probably due to, let's say, if the elements are taking some times to load. Probably it can be due to slowness of your application or CI/CD pipeline or any other things, but might not be a real bug or might not be the coding issues. So at that time, what generally we try to do is we try to run it once again to see if the bug are real or if there is a coding issues kind of, right? So we generally try to do write a logic like for 10-15 lines of code that we try to take the help in terms of Selenium and then perform the logic saying whenever the test case get failed, automatically run that. Playwright here does that as well automatically. You only have to mention inside the configuration file that whenever test case failed, how many times that you want to run by retrying the same failed test cases. That you just have to mention instead of 0. If you want to run once, you can just mention it as 1. If you want to run 2 times, you can mention 2 times over here, and that will automatically run the failed test case wherever it appears inside your test automation. And the other that I was and the other that I was talking about is logging mechanism. Playwright automatically generate the log file over here as well. I'll show you after running one particular test case. We'll show you how does the Playwright help us in generation of a log file as well. The complete log file, whatever the step-by-step process it has gone through, After the completion of test case, you will be also able to see that what happened before the execution of step and what happened after the execution of step. That means that will also help us in terms of debugging purpose, which is the next point over here. Playwright provide inspector tool, which help us in monitoring and debugging every steps of execution. Every steps of execution you will be able to see over here. Any kind of locators that you want to verify at the time of checking or at the time of debugging as well, you can generate by using the Playwright tool over here. Okay, so that means after the completion of test execution, you can do a time traveling like that. That means like when you launch the URL, what happened before that and what happened after the launching URL, you will be able to see inside the report. And also one more advantage over here is that Playwright automatically generates the HTML report as well. We do not have to write even a single line of code. It automatically does the generation of HTML report that I'll show you in the next few minutes. Earlier, when we talk about the benefits of a Playwright, there is one another that Playwright has a built-in support of API testing. That means it by default supports the complete API testing as well. We can take the help of API. Sometimes we'll have some edge case validation, right? Let's say uh, you are working for an e-commerce application. Let's say, for example, you are trying to work for e-commerce application and you have logged in by using your credential. So it will generate you a user ID for you. And when you try to access inside the API by changing your user ID to some other user ID, right? That basically known as an edge case scenario where you have logged in by using your credential, but you are trying to access someone else's account. Generally, that is not possible by using UI automation or UI by using the web application because you cannot access some other accounts by providing their user ID or any other things unless and until you know their password. But by using the help of API, we can test those scenarios as well. Second scenario can be, let's say, if your application have been integrated with third-party application, let's say Salesforce or HubSpot, example, right? So there might not be a chances that the Salesforce API might go to a down stage or it might not be working. But we also have to validate what happened in a scenario when the Salesforce API is down. So those some kind of combination of API that we can generate over here, which will also test us and edge cases. Let's say when Salesforce application have some kind of issues, then how our application will be performing. Those scenarios again we can test by using the combination of web and API automation over here.
Praveen,
Okay.
one more question, please. When we
Yes.
say API, so does it mean it supports all features of REST APIs?
Yes. 100%.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Praveen, actually, I didn't understand your first scenario where you mentioned like with some other credential, we can able to see the other person order detail.
Okay.
How come
So
it will?
what I was trying to say is, whenever you log in, let's say this is one of the application, right,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm trying to log in with my credential.
Okay.
Let me just try to do that. Where I'm trying to log in with my credential, right? So it has generated something over here for my account. When you go to orders tab, it generates the order that you have placed over here. And in this case, there will be one network tab happen. There will be one API call happen. What is API call happen is you can provide your user ID over here.
Hmm.
Whatever the user ID that you have given over here, that you can provide. It will fetch you for your user account. Whatever the order that you have performed over here, that will get you for your user account. Let's say if you are trying to modify this API call with some other users and trying to check if you are able to access or not. This is in terms of hackers will try to do, right? Security purpose. So what we are trying to do over here is we'll uh, take some other user ID and we'll try to check if you are able to access their orders detail or not. This will
Okay.
be an edge case scenario where you try to modify the user ID and check if you are able to perform that validation or not, or you are able to check their order details or not. I'll show you in our session as well how do we perform those scenarios
Okay.
inside our codes. So this helps like in validation of certain edge case scenario where you should not be allowed to check others account details, and that scenario we can test over here by using API, which Playwright by default supports. Okay, now Playwright has another tool, one other tool that it has given known as a code gen tool. Code gen tool is a tool which will automatically generate the script as soon as you navigate inside the application. Now, what I mean to say is, let's check it out over here. How does this work? Do not worry how I am trying to open this. Whenever we'll go inside our courses for this particular scenario or this particular topic, I'll go through in details. But let's try to see over here what is happening. So this is a Playwright code gen tool. This one that you see currently, this have been generated over here. This have been opened. This is known as Playwright code gen tool. And this will automatically generate the script, whatever the action that you perform on any of the application. So let's say example, we have this application over here, right? And here I am just trying to click button and perform some other actions. So what you can do is as soon as you open a code gen tool, it will also open this browser over here where you can paste the URL, whichever URL you are trying to use for the application. Okay, and then whatever the action that you will perform over here, let's say click on this element, and after clicking on this I generated this one. Again click on certain other elements, again come back to the original page, click on some other elements. Whatever the action that you are currently performing over here, right? Whatever the action that you are currently performing over here, you'll see inside the CodeGen tool that it have automatically generated the scripts for this the step that we have performed over here. So it says that we have launched the URL, clicked on an element over here, then it went to the other windows. That means in terms of multiple windows. On the other windows, other application that we had over here, other page that we have over here, on that it clicked on download. Then we again came back to the original page where we have clicked on home button. Then we clicked on sign on, then sign in, then we clicked on some other elements over here. So whatever the action that you have performed, it has automatically generated the scripts over here. By default, it generates in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript. You can also convert that in some other language as well. So if you say like Java and JUnit, it will convert your code in terms of a Java and JUnit, and so on. So this is again one of a helpful tool, which if you get stuck at certain place in terms of writing the steps, that you can take the help of a code gen, which will automatically generate the code for us. Okay.
Does it generate for like for every application that we open? Like on
Every
one browser we
applications.
have one, and then in another browser we have the other one. Is it going to like combine both on both the browsers, or
No, at a time it will only open one particular browser.
okay?
So whenever CodeGen opens, it will open one browser, and on that, inside one application, you can perform. If you have other application as well, then you again have to open a second time the CodeGen tool.
Okay.
Okay. So this helps us in generating the automatical scripts. Yes, go ahead.
Is it any by default browser we can open the code gen like Firefox or anything? Is it possible or by
So
it take?
by default, it takes Chrome browser. By default, it takes a Chrome browser. But if you want to navigate on, you can just enable inside your configuration file, and that will open on that browser as well.
Okay,
So we
but
have
if we
currently in enabled this one. If you want to go on let's say Firefox or Safari, you can also do that by just enabling this.
But if we are doing two, it will take only one. The first preference will take
At
the
a
first
time, it
one.
will take, right. At a time, it will just take one browser.
Okay. Okay.
And you just open the code gen from the IDE only, like from the Visual Studio only?
You can open from your command prompt as well. Your command
Oh,
prompt, your terminal that are available inside your system. It is not
okay.
necessary that you have to open from Visual Studio Code only. You can go to command prompt, go to your project, and from there you have to open it.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Actually, I have one query. If the test failed once, then why it there a need to retest it 3 to 4 times, and why it necessary to mention in the configuration?
So sometimes what happens is your test case fails due to application slowness, or due to some network issues, or due to some CI/CD pipeline issues, right? So that might not be a real issues. That might not be a real bug inside the application, or that might not be a real coding issues that you have written, right? So sometimes it can be due to network issues, due to application slowness, or due to some CI/CD pipeline issues. Your test can fail, right? So we also try to retries to check if it is really failing inside the application or not every time. That is where we try to go for retrying logic.
Okay.
Okay,
Fine.
so there we try to check running for few times of, okay, if it is 100% failing, then there might be some bug, or then there might be some coding issues. And later we can try to debug where it is failing for any bug inside the application or due to the coding issue.
Okay. And second query, how will recognize a test run, like open or appropriate browser after configuration, like Safari browser? So how will recognize this is a test
So
run of appropriate browser
So you
open
will be able to,
right?
right, understood. So you will be able to recognize by just looking into this. So whenever your browser opens, that will have, that you will be checking it as a Chrome. In terms of a Safari, it will, like, however you see a browser opens, like whenever you open a Safari, how does it look like? In the same way, it will open inside your browser as well. So you'll be able to recognize whether it is Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and that will also have a mention, something earlier that we have seen. It was displaying as a WebKit. WebKit means Safari browser. For others, when you generate, it will also have an identifier over there saying that whether that is a mobile browser, mobile specific for Android, or mobile specific for Safari. And in the same way, you will also be checking for the Firefox as well. Every browser will have their different configurations. When you open a Firefox, that will display in some other way. You can see like there are some kind of things that it's displaying on the left top. But if you open a Google Chrome, that is having some other things over here, right? So however we recognize manually, in the same way, you will also be able to recognize inside your test automation that which browser that it has opened over here.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay? Great. Okay, now a couple of them are which generally few of the questions were in our first session, that why are we going for a JavaScript and TypeScript? Generally, Playwright is designed based on the Node.js. That means Playwright have been developed using JavaScript and TypeScript. So it is much more, it is having a much more compatibility with a JavaScript and TypeScript. And when we go for using JavaScript and TypeScript, our framework becomes much more lightweight. We do not have to do much configuration. We do not have to install much more things. Just a command within 30 seconds, just a command that we have gone through other day as well, which is npm init playwright. Just this command will help us in installing the complete Playwright framework inside our system. So whatever you see inside this one, whatever you see over here, like all these folders, all the structure have been automatically generated by the Playwright at the time of installation. Okay, so that is where we generally or the organization is generally go for choosing either JavaScript or TypeScript. And the major advantage that you see, if any one of you have worked in the past for Shadow DOM elements, if anyone of you have gone through in the past for Shadow DOM elements, handling Shadow DOM elements in using Selenium is used to be a much complex. I'll show you the code differences later when we go for this concept in our course. It used to be much complex. When I was learning Selenium, it was like a nightmare kind of things for me, which I've invested to handle a simple scenario in 2 to 3 days of time. Where Playwright says that I'll by default handle Shadow DOM elements as well. Shadow DOM elements is an element which will be hidden on the web page. Inside the DOM structure, what is DOM? DOM is document object model. So when you go to the right click on the application, go to inspect, and whatever the value that you see over here is a DOM element, is a DOM known as document object model. And whenever you work with a shadow DOM elements will be hidden inside these DOM elements, and that we cannot identify it easily. Playwright says that Playwright says that I consider all the elements, including the shadow DOM elements, in the same way, however you work with the other elements inside any of the web application. So we do not have to handle it in a special way. However you write the locators, however you try to do the actions for the other elements, you should also be able to do in the same way by using the Playwright. We'll go through in our course when we go to the topic like Shadow DOM. There I'll show you the differences between the Selenium code and Playwright code to handle Shadow DOM elements. Okay, these are generally few which I have listed out along with like handling alerts by default, handling scrolling down or scrolling up inside the page by default done by the Playwright. Apart from that, there are lot many advantages that I have not listed out here. Whenever we go through with the course, you will see like what are the different advantages. Other than this, we have example. Let's say parallel testing. So when we try to do a parallel testing, like multiple test case running at the same time or inside the multiple browser, this has by default support by the Playwright. That means we just have to make one configuration change inside the configuration file over here. If you go over here inside this configuration and you just say it as fully parallel as true. As soon as you say that fully parallel as true, your test case will start running in a parallel mode. What are the number of test cases that you want to run? That will go through like again in our course that how many test cases you can run at a time and so on. Okay, so these were a few of the basic advantages that we have in terms of working with Playwright. And now we'll see a few of the differences again between the Playwrights and Cypress and Playwright versus Selenium over here. And then I'll come back to the again question and answer if you have anything. So I have also given in the same document, which you will be getting access to as well. Here, in this case, if you try to see, we have listed out a few of the advantages and disadvantages for Cypress versus Playwright. So what it says is, whenever you are working with a simple UI automation, which is like form filling, normal click on an element, and other things, there we can use either Cypress or Playwright. If you do not have complex element like multiple windows handling, alerts handling, if you do not have all these scenarios, then either you can choose a Cypress or you can choose a Playwright to handle those scenarios. But whenever it involves with cross-browser testing, multiple domains, some kind of performance testing, some kind of API testing, file uploads and downloads, those have not been directly supported by Cypress, whereas Playwright has built-in support for all these things, which is cross-browser testing, multi-domain testing, that means multiple windows and tab that we have just seen by using the CodeGen tool. Some kind of performance measurement, it will also be done by the Playwright. API testing is automatically and fully supported by Playwright. File uploads and download is also being fully supported by Playwright. Now, when we go for a test automation, the major things comes into handling CI/CD pipeline plus headless running of a test case. Headless means when you execute the test case, you will not see that the browser have opened on, like any of the browser have opened. You will not see that the browser have opened, but internally it will perform the action, perform the test automation. And that is what known as headless mode of execution that have a limited support inside Cypress, and it is completely supported by Playwright. Completely supported by Playwright that will again go through in our session. I was talking about network mocking just now. Like if you are trying to handle or if you are trying to uh, uh, access some other's account, that is known as network mocking. Have a basic support inside Playwright, inside a Cypress, but Playwright have a fully control on the API testing. And mobile emulation that we have just seen, the same code that you write for the web automation will also work on mobile specific browser as well. And now let's check few of the other benefit that we have for a Playwright when we compare with Selenium. So a couple of things, which is language support, browser support are same for both Selenium and Playwright. Execution speed in terms of a Playwright is much faster. That means 50% faster than Selenium. In terms of execution of a test case, Playwright works 50% faster than Selenium. And why is that? Once we discuss regarding the architecture of Playwright, there you'll come to know why the Playwright execution is much faster when we compare with Selenium. I have also given the architecture over here as well. By looking into this also you can understand, but once we go through in detail, you will understand what is the difference between Selenium and Playwright, which makes the Playwright much faster in terms of execution. Installation, it is pretty simple than Selenium. In terms of Selenium, we have to install WebDriver, then we have to install browsers, like different browsers, which will be driver browsers plus whenever you have to, again, let's say take the screenshot, you have to depend on third-party tool and so on. Different, again, for writing the test case, writing the assertions, you also have to depend on TestNG and JUnit. TestNG or JUnit, right? Playwright by default supports everything over here. Headless mode is supported by both of the tools. Wait mechanism, when we talk about waiting for an element, we have to write implicit wait or explicit wait in terms of Selenium. We have to write implicit wait or explicit wait in terms of Selenium to handle that waiting concept. Whereas Playwright automatically waits for an element. That is what we have gone through, the first advantage of Playwright. Automatically waits for an element to be displayed on the page. Parallel execution, if you want to do parallel execution, that means number of test cases that you want to run at the same time. In terms of a Selenium, we require the support of either TestNG or JUnit, whereas Playwright has built-in support for Playwright like parallel execution as well, that we have just seen over here, that you can configure over here as a fully parallel as true, and that's it. Your test case will start running in a parallel mode. Cross-browser testing, again, have been supported by both of the Selenium and Playwright in the same way. Frames handling, API automation, test retries, and test report, we have to depend on the third-party tool in terms of Selenium. Framework handling, frame handling, basically frames is a web page inside another web page. So handling of frames is a bit complex, whereas it has a built-in support, one of a method that it has given, which will automatically supports the Playwright frames inside the Playwright. API automation does not basically supported by the Selenium. It has complete support. Yes, there is one disadvantage over here as well, that Selenium supports mobile app automation as well, along with the help of APM, which is third-party tool. Whereas Playwright does not have that feature right now. Test retries, again, we have to depend on third-party interface that we have to check. Third-party interface that we have to write it manually. It's a retry logic, where we have just seen that retry will have a built-in support by the Playwright. Test reporting, again, we have to generate on third-party tool, which is Allure, or we have to also write customized HTML report, whereas Playwright does support automatically that. That means it will automatically generate the HTML report and Allure report as well when we provide the support for Allure. Shadow DOM requires a JavaScript execution. It has a native support over here in terms of Playwright. And apart from that, screenshot capturing, video recording is not being supported by Selenium. We have to again depend on third-party tool. Playwright automatically supports both of them. And then again, other advantage that we have over the Playwright, there are like minor advantages that I have not mentioned. But earlier I promised you that I'll show you one execution over here in terms of test case, and will show you how does it also generate the test like reporting along with the log file. So if you go inside this configuration, I have just enabled a Chrome browser, and I have just given like generate a log file, which is trace as on, screenshot as on, video as on. What will happen in this case is whenever we try to run the test case, let's say some test case that I'm trying to run over here, this test case. Okay, so I'm trying to run this test case over here. After the completion of test case, it will automatically generate the HTML report. We have not written even a single line of code to generate the report over here. Now, if you go and open the report from one of a folder that it has generated, which is Playwright report over here. Inside this, it has automatically generated the report known as index.html. Right click, copy path, and open inside any of the browser. You will see that we have just executed one of a code which is having a title as test1. This is displaying over here as a test1. We can go inside this. Let's go inside this and see what happens over here. These are the log files. Whatever the step that it has generated, it have listed out along with their source code, which line it has followed in terms of execution. So every step that it has executed have been displayed over here. This has also taken the screenshot, and this has also generated the complete log file over here. This is the log file known as traces, and this is the video recording which it has automatically generated. So you can see all the steps of the execution that it has performed and everything it has completed over here. So this test recording, it also generates by default, along with it also attached to the report as well. And this is known as report over here. Let me open by using a command so that just a click will work over there. Let me just go over here and say it as npx playwright show report, and this will open the report. If there is one other report is open, so it is not opening. But in general, what happened is, let's download this and open it inside the dev file. So I'll just say it as this one have been generated, and you can see this is what I was talking about. What happened before the execution? See, if you check it over here, action before and after. So action means it is highlighting here inside the page that next action that I'll perform on this particular element, which is username. What happened before the execution of this step? Nothing. And what happened after the execution of step? If you see for this particular line, you'll see that it has basically identified. We have just clicked on this element, right? It just clicked on that. For the next one, if you see, it is again saying that I'll perform the same action on username. What happened before? Nothing. What happened after? It has filled the username over here. And the same you can also see for the other elements as well. locator.fill, it says that I'll perform the action on the next element, which is password. What happened before? Nothing. What happened after? It has filled the password over here. So each and every step's execution also you can see inside the trace viewer. This is known as trace viewer, which is a part of the report over here and also known as log file that it generates automatically inside the parent. Okay, so that's basically a few of the differences between the Playwright versus Cypress and Playwright versus Selenium. And we have also seen a couple of and most of the advantage that we have over here in terms of Playwright, which is why, because of these advantages that we have just gone through, Playwright became much more popular in the market, and it is most famous for the organization as well, where either the organization are directly approaching for the Playwright test automation, or they are currently migrating from Selenium to Playwright. Okay. And then the question and answer. So if you have any questions related to this session or any other things that you would like to have, feel free to ask over here.
Hello.
Praveen, this is Sanjay. One question, because it is from Microsoft and Azure is also from Microsoft. So the organizations that are investing into Azure, so this tool comes automatic as offerings because it's free, or they have to
Right.
set up an environment,
Right.
install it.
So we have discussed this in that Playwright is completely open source. We do not have to pay even a single rupees or any currencies. Playwright is
No,
completely open source.
so does it come automatically with Azure, or you have to still install and set it up?
We have to install Playwright inside our system to work with.
Okay. Because I'm assuming when any organization is investing into, because these days, the whole CI/CD environment is also in cloud. So whether
Right.
it's a Azure or it's a AWD, I am sure it runs seamless. I mean, irrespective of the
Right.
environment.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. It
Okay.
works
Thank
on all the cloud platform,
you.
whichever you are
Even
running.
Google Cloud for that matter, because it's just a hosting
Yes.
environment, right? Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello.
Okay. Yes.
So the default timeout which you mentioned of 30 seconds, is it for the browser or for the commands
Is it
which
for the commands?
okay, so for
It's for
each
the
command,
command that would. Right. Right.
okay, for each command it will wait for 30 seconds, you mean to say.
If the element have not appeared on the page, if it has have appeared, then it will automatically keep on going for the execution. So if element have appeared on the page, then it will not wait for 30 seconds. It will keep on moving. But if element have not displayed on the page, then it will try to wait for maximum 30 seconds
Okay,
by
sir.
default. Okay, that doesn't mean like it will keep on waiting for all the elements every time 30 seconds. As we have just seen the execution, if you would have seen our execution just now, that have been completed within probably under 10 seconds. The execution have been completed earlier within under like 14.9 seconds. At all the step it has performed. But let's say if any of the element is not appearing on the page, then for those elements, it will try to wait for 30 seconds to check if the element is appearing on the page or not. That is by default.
Okay, sir.
Can we change that 30 seconds also, or
We can change. We can override that 30 seconds logic inside the configuration file. We can say it out. Let's say timeout equals to 120 seconds. So whatever the timeout that you'll mention over here, that will be taken care.
okay?
So it has given a flexibility for all. Earlier I said like it also automatically takes the screenshot, right? So it has also given a flexibility that you can also write a method and you can utilize whenever it needed. It all automatically handles the alert, but it has taken the flexibility that you can also handle by self as well. Okay. Yes.
Ahana here. Hi.
Hey,
Question is here, can this Playwright tool handle the shadow root when it is closed?
shadow root when it is closed is bit difficult for any of the tools. We have to take a workaround for any of the tools. When
My
it is closed,
Yeah,
right,
my application is full name is somewhere is closed. That's why.
right. So we have to take a workaround over there as we take in terms of other tools and technology. But if you have a shadow root as open, then it will by default handle that. You do not have to depend on any other workaround. But in terms of closed, we have to do some workaround over there to handle.
So that is mean there's some possibilities there, if it is
Yes,
closed.
yes, yes.
So by Playwright will do help for some
Playwright,
another.
by Playwright itself, using some other workaround. So
Okay.
Playwright by default will be able to identify the element, but in terms of a closed, it will also identify, but will not be able to interact. So there we have to perform some workaround in that case.
Okay. One more question here. Does Playwright handle CAPTCHA?
The CAPTCHA is not related to any tools and technology. If any other tools and technology are able to handle CAPTCHA, then Playwright will also handle. But in terms of a CAPTCHA validation, we have to write a logic. It is not depend on any tools and technology to handle any CAPTCHAs or any OTPs.
What
Right?
kind of
So,
validation?
so when we talk about a validation, what do we validate? What do we validate in terms of a CAPTCHA? Whatever the text that it has generated, whatever let's say numeric value it has generated inside the CAPTCHA, and all, right? So there we have some library like AI library, which will get us the value. But if you talk about the complete validation of the CAPTCHA, it will also generate you the text and all. That will not be done by any tools and technology.
Okay.
We have to write some logic to get the value. It will identify the element, but from there we have to get the text value from the element, and then you will be able to handle that. So Playwright will help you in a uh, like most proper way of handling the CAPTCHA. But again, we have to write some kind of logic to get the value, because that will be an image file. CAPTCHA used to be an image file, not a text element.
So
Right?
do we cover in our syllabus this CAPTCHA
Cap
validation?
CAPTCHA validation have not been given in our syllabus, but as I said earlier, that if there are in our first session, that if there are any customization that you require for a setup, we'll be able to support it over here as well. Example, everyone will not go for CAPTCHA validation. If you are having that kind of um something that you are trying to handle inside your test automation, I'll be able to support you to see like how do we handle that. But it has not been given inside the course because everyone will not be working with the CAPTCHAs.
Sure, sure. One more thing. Is it possible to do API performance via this tool?
Yes. It is having a limited support, not the complete support that K6 and other tools is able to do, but it does some kind of performance testing as well.
So after the performance, it will generate some metrics, the
Yes,
P99.
yes, yes. It will also generate the metrics. So it
One
will
more.
also generate you the reports, however it generates in terms of a performance. Yes.
Yeah, I'm working on another project. Like my application is based on the third-party partition UI. So I need
Mhm.
to run via API some part, via UI some part is there. So can I automate this way? Some part is UI is not present. Somewhere I need to go with Postman API execution.
And that is where I was talking about. Playwright has a built-in support of API, which we can take the help of an API to check some kind of edge case scenario with the mix of web and API testing. Right?
Okay.
So you as Playwright has by default support of API, so we can take the help of API we can take the help of API to integrate inside our web automation as well. So
Fine.
wherever it needed for the API, you can use API. Wherever it needed for the web, you can use web over there.
So are we covering such a scenario in
One of a
further?
scenario will be covering up over here.
Fine then. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question over here for now? Okay. So if nothing else, then thanks a lot everyone for joining. Hopefully it might have been helpful to understand some of the concept in terms of Playwright. And then we'll again continue in the next session by going through with one the concept that I was trying to show you inside here over here, that we'll check like what is the prerequisite to work with Playwright and JavaScript. Installation and setup of JavaScript environment will cover up in our next session. Okay, that's it then. Thanks a lot everyone for joining, and we'll again see you all tomorrow with some other topic.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.